Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us for Critical English Grade 7. We are moving on to a new topic today, and with us we have Alicia and we have Azaria. We're dealing with all the A's today. Maybe tomorrow we might deal with the B's. So like I said, we're dealing with summary writing today. And if you remember, girls, last session, we were talking about report writing. Remember we talked about the whole accident scenario and so forth, and you had to write your own homework for me, and both of you did that, so excellent job. So what you did there is that you were summarizing exactly what happened. You said this happened, but what happened might have taken 4 to 5 minutes. But when you told it to me, it happened in a few words, a few lines. You didn't say, and then this happened, and then that happened, and every single thing that happened. We made it very small, very brief. We didn't talk about each minute or each second. We talked about the overall thing. So with summary writing, it's writing obviously, but what do you think it is really? What is this thing called summary? It's when you do what kind of writing? It doesn't always have to be writing either. All right, let's go give you a hint on this. On the screen, you should be seeing what? What are you seeing on the screen? A cow. Yes, that's on the PowerPoint presentation. So you're seeing a picture of a cow and it looks huge, right? Now let's look at the other photo I'm going to show you. Sorry, this one here. The same cow, but what do you notice about it? It's smaller, but it's the same thing, right? So you can easily turn pictures that you have on your phone or computers from big to small. There's even something called cropping, right? You can just crop your photos to fit whatever you want it to fit. So summary writing is basically making a larger piece of writing a smaller piece of writing. Or you can even summarize a movie. A movie lasts for approximately 1.5 hours, sometimes more. So if I ask you to summarize your favorite movie, you wouldn't be talking to me for an hour and 30 minutes. You would try to tell it to me in probably 5 sentences. The movie is about X, Y, or Z, correct? Yeah. Or if you ask your friend to tell you about their favorite book, do you expect them to read the whole book to you? No, you just want a few sentences what the book is about, really. You don't need them to read the whole thing for you. So people do summary all the time, and we don't always realize that we're doing it. So when you go home from school every day and your parents ask you, what did you do at school today? You're summarizing for them when you tell them what your day was like. Or if you go out to vacation somebody went to Linden Blue Lake, and somebody asks, how was your vacation? You don't sit them down for 2 hours and talk for 2 hours, right? You just tell them briefly, how was your vacation? So I'm going to ask you now. You were away from school for some time because you were on the August vacation, and that will soon end because you're starting school. So how was your vacation in 1 sentence each? We're going to start with Azaria first, and then we go to Alicia. How was your vacation?
It was good.
It was good. Very good. 1 sentence I wanted. Yours, Alicia?
It was very interesting.
Take your time. Would you like us to come back to you?
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to come back to you. So on the screen, you should also be seeing summary writing guidelines. And I summarize it if you notice. I'm not giving you an entire paragraph to explain what they are, but I give you points there. And the first one is use less words. So the whole idea of a summary is to make it smaller, shorter. So if you're making it smaller and shorter, you have to use less words. And sometimes you can use 1 word to stand in place for several other words, and it puts it over very neatly. Omit examples. So if we're omitting something, what are we doing? What's another word for omit? Cancel. Excellent. Omit means to cancel. What's another word we can use? When you're typing, for example, you're typing on the keyboard and you want to get rid of some of the words. What key can you press on the keyboard to delete? Back, yes. Or you can also press which other key? It's spelled out on the keyboard, DEL, and what does it stand for? Delete. So if you want to omit something, it means you're taking it out or you are deleting it. So if we don't want any examples, and this also goes for direct speech. So for example, you know, when people say this is what she said and they now quote the person, we don't want the quoted part that the person said. If you have to do a summary, we don't use quotation marks in a summary because we don't want to use the exact words. We have to put our own words there. So that brings us to our third point, use own words. So even if you're summarizing a passage and the passage has 5 paragraphs and you pick out a main point from each of the 5 paragraphs, are you just going to use the words that are in those paragraphs wholesale? Like pluck out one sentence from here, pluck out one from the other and put them all together? Would that be a summary? No, because you're not using your own words. You're using the words that were there originally. So in your own words now, tell me, what is one thing you learned about summary writing? What is it that you need to do? Alicia, let's go to you.
That you should always use your own words.
Use your own words. Excellent. Azaria?
You don't always have to use quotation.
Good. You don't ever have to use quotations when you're doing summary. So excellent point. So you know, in story writing, you're encouraged to use different things like quotations and so forth. And even in report writing, you don't want to put your words into the person's mouth. So you can or you may use quotations in some reports, not all of them. But in summary writing, it's not allowed at all because you're trying to use less words, not more. Good. So we're going to a passage here, and it's about 4 paragraphs. So there are 2 paragraphs on the screen, there will be 2 on the other. And we're going to have Alicia read the first 2 paragraphs on this screen. We're going to discuss it a bit, and then we'll move to the other screen with the other paragraphs. Azaria will read that, and we'll discuss it. And then we'll try to see how best to summarize. Sounds good? All right, go ahead, Alicia. You can start.
Elias was assigned a big project in his social studies class. He wanted to do well on the project, but he knew it was a lot of work. He thought it would be boring. Elias had 2 weeks until the due date. Elias could have gone home and started the project. Instead, he put it off. He went skateboarding with his friends at a park, and he played video games with his brother. When his mom suggested he clean his room, Elias happily cleaned, just to do anything other than the project.
Thanks for your excellent reading, Alicia. So, in the first paragraph, tell me what is the main point there? What was that paragraph all about?
That he was given an assignment to do.
Good. He was given an assignment to do. That is the main thing, right? So we can ignore everything else in that first paragraph. So he was given an assignment to do, and I like that you replaced the word project with assignment. So you're on the right track there. What about the second paragraph? What's the main point there?
He didn't want to do.
He didn't want to do it, but it went further than that. It's not just that he didn't want to do it. He also avoided doing it. You notice that? What's one word we can put to that if you keep putting something off all the time? It's a big word. I'm not sure if you know it as yet. Not a lot of persons who are in their 10, 12 year would know that word. It's a big word. If you keep putting something off, or if a person keeps putting something off, what is that called? What are they doing, and what does it make them? I do it sometimes too. It begins with P, and it's procrastinating. So if you know you have an assignment to do like Elias, and you're not doing it, and you avoid doing it, and you're doing everything else, you are procrastinating. And if you are this type of person, you are a procrastinator. So one is the verb and one is the noun. The noun would be the procrastinator, and the procrastinating ing, that will be the verb in however you use it. So everybody on the same page? So summary again, he has an assignment to do and he is putting it off. He's avoiding doing it. And what's the word we use for that? He is procrastinating. Excellent. So Azaria, now we move to these two other paragraphs. Your turn to read.
Eli suddenly panicked as he remembered the due date. The project was due tomorrow. He hadn't even started. He was too afraid to tell his mom. She would not be happy about this. Immediately, Eli began scrambling to figure out how he could get the project done on time. At school the next day, Eli returned in his finished product. Eli was not proud of the work he had completed. He believed it would have been much better.
I think that should have been better.
If he spent more time on it. Eli wished that he had been more responsible.
Thank you. So now it's your turn to summarize. Look at the first paragraph that we're seeing there. What is the main idea there?
His project was due tomorrow and he panicked.
Good. His project was due and he was panicking. Remember, he was putting it off all the time. Has this ever happened to you?
No.
You have a project to do and you keep putting it off? No? Sometimes it happened to you. What about chores at home? Maybe that happened with chores? Oh, she's very good then, huh? Excellent. We can learn from you. So the next paragraph now, what is the main point there, Zaria?
He was hustling to do the work and he ended up getting it into school on time, but he wasn't proud.
Yeah. So he finished it, but do you think he would have done a better job if he had spent more time on it?
Yeah.
Definitely. And it also said he wished that he had been more responsible. What was the feeling he was having there? If you wish you had studied more, you're having what? If you wish you didn't shout at somebody, what are you feeling?
Bad.
You're feeling bad, yes, but there's a specific word for that.
Worried?
Close, you're close. It begins with R. If you get sick because you're not drinking enough water, you feel something because you should have been drinking water.
Ruined?
It begins with R, but no, it's not ruined. A lot of adults have this feeling with decisions that they make that didn't turn out good eventually. And they feel bad and they wish they could have done differently. What's that? What's the word for that? No? Okay, so the word is regret. Does it make sense now? Yeah. You wish you had done something and you're sorry that you didn't do it this way instead. So the last sentence there, Elias wished that he had been more responsible. Elias had regrets about procrastinating. You notice how the word regret can make up for he wish he hadn't whatever? So one word can take the place of several other words when we're summarizing. So the idea is to use words that are meaningful. So you try to use less words And it doesn't have to be the same word that you're using, because remember, you have to use your own words. So the regret in this instance is the new word. Remember earlier, Alicia, you had said assignment instead of project? So assignment was your word to replace project. So we use regret here to replace he had wished he had been more responsible. See? See how everything connects? Not so hard, huh? So let's go to the next screen. What's the heading of this table? Let's summarize. What's the first thing that we have there in our table? Somebody. So who or what was this passage based on?
Someone.
And who is the someone?
A person.
What was his name? Elias. Excellent. So the somebody in the passage is Elias. Wanted. What did he wanted? Or what? To not do his project. Good. But what triggered him to start his project?
Because it was due for tomorrow.
It was due for tomorrow, and he was panicking, right? So because he panicked and because it was due, what did he do?
He rushed.
He rushed to finish it. Then the last, he wasn't proud of himself. He had regrets. See how easy that is? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things came up out of this. And if I just want us to form 3 sentences now about this whole scenario with Elias. Let me check the time. Okay, we're good with time. So let's go to our sentences. So you have books in front of you. You remember what we talked about. Right, good. I'm going to give you 1 minute to write 1 sentence. So the sentence, you can write it while I'm talking. So the sentence that you're writing is about Elias. What did he had to do? What did he not want to do? You can write that in 1 sentence. And then one of you will share with us. I'm going to put back the passage on the screen so you can see. If you forgot, you can have a look at it. Let me know when you're finished, right? Azaria is using pen today. The newest Form 1 girl in the block. Alright, Alicia looks like she's getting halfway there. So you're writing the somebody, and what did somebody not want to do? It doesn't have to be perfect, that's why we're doing it like this. Alright, you should be about wrapping up. Let's have Alicia. Kindly share what you have with us.
Elias was procrastinating about his assignment that he had been given.
Elias was procrastinating about the assignment that he had been given. Okay, you captured most of what we were talking about. Thank you. Azaria, what's yours?
Elias had a big project to do. But he didn't want to do it, and he tried to avoid it.
Good. So we have the main ideas about Elias, about him having a project, and about him not wanting to do it. So both of you captured all of those things, and we're going to look at the number of words that you have just now. We're not going to look at that now. So what's the next thing? So he didn't want to do it. That's what you said, Azaria, and Alicia said he procrastinated doing it, right? So what's the next thing that happened now? It was due. Remember that part? So it was due, and how was he feeling? Let's go to the next one. What he started to do, he suddenly panicked. So how are we going to put that in a sentence now? So it was due and he was panicking. Put that in a sentence, but in your own words as well.
We can use the same word, panic, or we have to use it?
You can use it for now, but we'll try to change it later. And if you can't think of another word right now, use it back for now and we will change it later. All right, Azaria, what's yours? Not finished? Okay. Alicia, you're about wrapping up?
Yes.
All right, let's hear what you have.
Elias panicked as his assignment had been due tomorrow.
As his assignment had been due tomorrow. Okay, you capture the idea, but we can work on fixing the sentence a bit later, okay? Good. Azaria, you about done? All right, we're going to give you a little bit more time. So, Alicia, since you've finished that, I want you to wrap up with the last sentence now. What happened in the end?
He regretted it.
Okay, so you said he was panicking because his assignment was due, and now you're saying he regretted it. You're missing something there.
He regretted not starting it before.
He did regret it, yes, but up to what you have, you hadn't said anything about him finishing it. Remember, he had finished it? So now you have to capture him finishing it with how he felt about it. Let's go back to this thing that we had here. So you finish with the somebody, you finish with the wanted part, but, so we were at the so just now. So he was panicking. Then what? When he panicked, what happened afterwards? Let's go back to the last paragraph. At school the next day, Elias turned in his finished product. Elias was not proud of the work he had completed. Notice that? Completed, and we had the other one about finished product. So, did he manage to finish it eventually? Yeah, because it says finished product and it says completed. So he did finish his assignment, he did finish his project, but was he pleased with the quality of what he did? No. So that's what we're capturing in one sentence. So give it a shot. Put those two thoughts together in one sentence. Azara, you finished with your second sentence? Please read for us.
The project was due tomorrow and he panicked. He didn't want his mother to know.
All right, so let's go. All right, let's read back the second paragraph there. Elias suddenly panicked as he remembered the due date. The project was due tomorrow. So we got that part there, right? He hadn't even started. So we know he hadn't started because he was avoiding it. So we don't have to say it again. He was too afraid to tell his mom. So remember we said he panicked already? So if you're panicking, what's another word we can use for panicking? You are feeling how? You've never panicked before?
Yeah.
What has made you panic before? You can't remember, but you felt it before, right? Is it a nice feeling? It's an ugly feeling? It's ugly, right? So when people are stressing out, what do people tell them? Why are you stressing? You'll get old before your time. So another word for panicking is?
Exaggerated.
Exaggerated? Exaggerated is if I say I have this bottle of water, but you tell me that my bottle of water, big. That's exaggerating. So with the panicking, another word for it could be stress. He was under a lot of stress. he could also be under a lot of or having anxiety. Because when people are panicking, those are negative emotions, and anxiety is also similar to panicking. If you're having a panic attack, you can also call it an anxiety attack or something, I guess. So this one here, where he was afraid to tell his mom. So the same negative feeling that he has with panicking, we don't need to mention the part with him not telling his mom, because that covers, when we say he was panicking about it and we said he's afraid, those two emotions basically wrapped up into one, because he was afraid of telling her because she will get mad at him and blame him. So also you see how the panic is working into its way there. Good. So we don't need to mention the part with his mom, Azaria, because he said she would not be happy about this, and then he started scrambling to figure out how to get it done. Good. So you want to read the rest of the sentence that you got there, or that was it?
That was it.
That was it. All right. So you're moving on to the third thing now. You finish your third sentence? What do you have so far?
I haven't started it.
All right. I'm going to give you a little time to start, and then we need to push ahead. We'll also be working on this next Tuesday, so this is just to give you a taste of what summary is. It doesn't have to be perfect today. And you'll be doing this until fifth form anyway, so there's enough time for you to build those skills. Well, not until fifth form, until you die basically, because you keep summarizing all your life, right? When you're telling your grandchildren stories about their younger days, you're summarizing your life experiences too, right? So it's not just for school, like I said before. All right, we somewhere there, Alicia? What do you have so far? Let me hear. I can help you.
Elias and felt. I'm trying to think of a word to fit in there.
For what? What do you want the word to say?
To describe his feelings.
To describe his feelings. But remember, we're looking at what he did. So first of all, what did he do in the last paragraph?
He regretted.
Yes, he did regret it, but before he regretting is a feeling. What happened before? Did he manage to finish his assignment?
Yes.
Yes. So we need to fit that part in now. So what can we say? Do you think he spent a lot of time on his assignment? No, because the due date was fast approaching. So when you hurry to do an assignment, what's the word you can use for that? Or when you're late and you have to get out the house very quickly, what's the word to describe that?
In a rush.
Rush, exactly. So we can say Elias rushed to finish his assignment, and afterwards what's the feeling? Regretted not spending more time or something like that. So that's what you can write there. Azaria, let's see what you have. You already finished.
He did his project in a hurry, but he brought his finished project in and he was not proud of what he did.
He was not proud of what he did. Okay, good. We got something going on there though. You have the ideas I wanted, but you kind of repeated yourself. Read it back for me one more time, please.
He did his finished project in a hurry. He brought his finished project in and he was not pleased of what he did.
Good. So can you identify where you repeated yourself?
He was not pleased.
Look back at the first couple words that you have there. You said he finished project. Good. You already mentioned that idea, right? So in summary writing, if you mention an idea already, you don't need to repeat yourself, because the whole idea is to use less words, and you can't use less words if you repeat what you already said. Got me? Good. So see if you can edit that a little bit. Instead of having those two ideas joined with the and, try to make it one idea and then add that to the rest of the sentence. Don't scratch that. Just start over the first part and you will finish it off a bit later. So we know he finished his project, right? You said the other idea was that he rushed to finish it, right? So how about we put that into one? And he handed it up.
When it was time to bring the projects in, he was not proud of what he did.
Think about it, play around with it, come up with something. We're going to examine it a bit keener a little bit later on, right? I want you to think through the process. Alicia, we good?
Almost.
Almost finished. All right. So while you're working on that, I wanted us to look at these words here. Transition. All right, thanks. So we're looking at these transition words that we have there. All right, you can take a little pause from writing now, and we're going to finish off that later, right? Because you already have what I wanted. We just need to edit now. Remember, we don't have to be perfect. So if you look on the screen, we have how many words there?
3.
Good. What's the first one?
However,
Followed by additionally, and then therefore. Are these words you have heard before?
Yeah.
What are some other words like this that you know?
Onward.
Onward. Anything else? Whereas. Excellent. That's one, yeah. Alicia, can you think of any words similar to those? And where would you usually see these words? At the starting of sentences or towards the ending? Usually at the starting. So when we do summary writing, like how you have your 3 sentences there, to glue your sentences together, we use words like this on the screen. So these are some other examples. I know it's a lot of words to look at, but I don't want you to look at all the words. For each of the blue that you're seeing, look for one word that you know already next to it. So for similarity, the first word I'm seeing there is also. Have we seen this used to join sentences together? Sorry, to join ideas together? For exception or contrast, we have however, which was an example just now. For sequence or order is first, second, third. You know about that, okay? And time, after, afterward. Those are things that you already know. Example, for example, is there. The next one, etc., etc. So you don't need to know all of this right now, but the words that are used here are used for specific reasons. And we don't need to know all of that today, but it's good to know what these words are and to have an idea of that they mean something different. So transition. So when we're doing summary, the transition words are like glue. So you can't remember your ideas are about different things. So we don't want your ideas to be here, there, and everywhere. To bring those 3 ideas that you have written there, we use transition words to glue it all together. So your sentences can flow easily. And if we don't follow or if we don't use transitions, it will result in what? Our sentences sounding, what's the last word on screen? Our sentences will be sounding jerky. You know, when you're in the minibus and they're going at a certain rate and just when they pull up the brakes, what happened? Everybody pitch up, you slide in your seat, right? Good. So if we don't use transitions in our summary writing, when somebody's reading it, they will feel like they're being pitched from here, pitched there, and all sorts of different things. Would that be a nice experience for them? No. So we want to make sure that we glue everything together so when somebody's reading it, they don't have a hard time reading it. They can read it smoothly. So let's wrap up here. This is all for today. Thank you so much for your time. I will see you next Tuesday. Bye-bye.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome today again to another session of Critical Math, grade 6 to 7. And today we are continuing with our ratio and proportion concept. So for last week we were examining ratio as well as proportion, and we've noticed that we have been dealing with these things every day in life, right? So the last time we were looking at the video and it was showing us how we can use ratio and proportion to scale a particular photograph, right? So that we can have it at a certain size, whether we want it big or we want it small, right? And sometimes if we have it too large, right, it becomes blurred, and so we have to adjust the proportion of the frame so that we can actually have a vivid picture of what the image is. All right. Also, we've examined ratio and proportion are used a lot in when we're looking at when we're cooking or recipes. And the last time we were looking at how we can look at different ratios to proportions in serving certain items. Or for example, we were looking at smoothies and gingerbread biscuits, right? One serving, if a particular amount serves two, how much is going to serve for probably 10 persons or maybe one person, all right? So today what we're going to look at is unequal sharing. And I was looking at your session today as it relates to English, and you are actually doing ratio and proportion in your English course. I didn't know if you noticed when you were looking at summary writing and you're taking that big passage and you're making it into a small, yes, that's ratio in its sense, right? So that big passage that you have, you're summarizing it in such a way that you use fewer words. So the ratio of words that you have in the original passage, right, is going to be is going to be larger compared to the words that you have in your summary writing. So you see how it is? But you would never think that, you use ratio in English language, right? You only think of it as a mathematical concept or something like that, right? But you use it all the time. All the time you use it. All right, so today we are looking at unequal sharing. But before we can examine what is unequal sharing, we need to understand what is equal sharing. And everybody knows what equal sharing is. So you don't have to make notes about that, right? So in front of you there, we have a container with some marbles. And this is what you're going to do for me. You're going to open that container, and you're sharing 10 marbles equally among yourselves. Right? So remember, we like to do so practical stuff sometimes. So you're sharing 10 marbles between yourselves. And you're putting them in those little containers there because we don't want the marbles rolling all over the floor. All right? 10 marbles among yourselves. Between yourselves. All right. So Azaria, how many marbles you got?
10.
All right. Alicia, how many marbles you got?
10.
So you're sharing 20 marbles among yourselves. I didn't say 20 marbles among yourselves. I said 10. So how much out of the 10 are you supposed to get? And how much out of the 10 are you supposed to get?
5.
Exactly. So put back those extra marbles. All right. So you're sharing 10 marbles between yourselves. So each of you should have 5 marbles. So you want to take extra. Exactly. So that's what equal means. So it means you have 5 and you have 5. There is no difference there in the figure. All right? So that's what it means by equal sharing. So to understand unequal sharing now, well, the world that we live in, right? Things don't always be, go the way we want. And so sometimes among your own siblings, because you're the older one, your mom is going to say, okay, you can have a larger portion of the pie. And if you're the smaller one, you get the smaller portion of the pie, right? So things like that happen. even in the workplace, right? You have varying degrees of salary. Some persons get a high salary, some persons get a small salary, and that is dependent on the type of job that you do as well. So in the world, so that's how the world is set up. So unequal sharing means you're not going to have the same amount. Somebody's going to have a larger portion than somebody, or somebody's going to have a lesser portion than somebody. All right? So put back your 10 marbles, 5 each that you have. So I want you to share 11 marbles. So listen carefully. 11 marbles between yourselves, but this is the condition. Alicia, you're going to have one more marble than Azaria. What is the thinking process? So it's 11 marbles you're sharing, but Alicia is going to have one more marble than Azaria. Good. Take your marbles. All right, so Azaria, how many marbles you have?
5.
You have 5. Alicia, how much marbles you have?
6.
You have 6. So why did you get 6?
Because I had to add an extra because it was 11 and
It was 11.
was
So 1 was the, right? So 1 was the extra, right? So 11 take away that 1 extra will give you how much? 10. And the 10 marble is divided equally between yourselves. So you have 5, you have 5, but then you take on the extra one. So that's the concept really of unequal sharing, right? It can come in many forms. For example, it can also come in the form of a ratio. So we're going to go through those examples there as well. All right? So another example. Put back those. All right? So you're sharing 20 marbles now between yourselves. But listen, you're having 6 more marbles. Azaria is having 6 more marbles than Alicia. How many marbles are we sharing now? 20? Right. And you're having 6 more. So let's go. That's all right. You can use your fingers. That's fine. Use your fingers. That's fine. It means you're thinking. Okay. So when I add up your marble and your marbles, we're supposed to have 20 in total, all right? All right, let's take our time. All right, let's check. Ready to check? Or are you counted? You can use the cover. You can use the cover to put, so if you need to count properly, turn the cover over. All right. So you can take your time and count there as well. All right. All right. So how many marbles you have? Miss count? Count, you can count them back. Take your time, take your time. Make sure you're take your time. Well, the marbles may be moving all over. Take your time and count there. How many marbles you got? 16. How many marbles you have?
4.
4?
Yeah.
We have a total of 20. But, so we're supposed to be sharing. I know I have pencils up here, but we're talking marbles. That's fine. So we're sharing a total of 20 marbles, right? 20 marbles. Azaria, you're supposed to have how much? 6 more, right?
Yeah.
So you're 6 more than who? Than Alicia. Right? A-L-I-C-I-A, right?
Yes.
A-L. A-L-I-C-I-A. So where is the extra? So the extra is what? Who's getting the extra? Azaria is getting the extra. So you need to take the extra from the total. So how many marbles we're sharing?
20.
In total. So we're sharing 20 marbles in total. Who's getting the extra? Azaria, right? How much of the extra are you getting?
6.
You're getting 6. So 20 take 6 gives us how much? Go on.
14.
14. That's great. 14. So that's an even number, right? So that 14 has to be divided among Azaria and Alicia. So how much? So remember, it's 2 of you. That gives us 7. So from baseline, both of you are supposed to have 7 as a base, but you will have the 6 extra, right? So Azaria, you have that's 7 plus the 6 extra. So how much you're supposed to have? 7 and 6? 13? You're supposed to have 13. And Alicia, how much you're supposed to have? Just that 7 there. So 13 plus 7 is going to give us the 20, right? So the total of 13 plus 7 is going to give us the 20 marbles that you're sharing. So make your corrections there. So you have some extra marbles that you're not supposed to have. Give those to Alicia. You have 4 and 3 there. So that's make it 7. You think you follow?
Yes.
The concept is clear here? All right, suppose you have that same 20 marbles, all right? But Alicia, you're going to have 4 extra. So work that out.
20 marbles.
20 marbles, you're getting 4 extra. 4 extra than, right? 4 more than Azaria. So, come on. If you want, you can lay up the marbles there. So, yes. So what is the extra?
She have 3 more from myself.
So she has 4 more, right? She will have 4 more than you. So you're sharing 20 marbles, but she's going to have 4 more than you. So the extra is 4. So how many marbles you're sharing? In total? 20. So take the extra from that. So 20 take 4 gives us 16. Great. So the 16 is divided among the 2 of you now. So that gives you 8. Great. So you have 8 and 8. But who has the extra? Alicia. How many extra you have? 4? Yes, you have 4 extra. So Azaria has 8, and Alicia has the 8 from the 16, right? Half of 16 plus the 4 extra. So you have a total of So you have a total of 12 marbles. All right, so that's how the concept of unequal sharing goes. So let's look at our next slide. So that brings us to what we were already talking about. So we're going to come to that a little bit. So here we have an example. So this one is in more or less a ratio form. And I know some of you have seen some of the questions like these before. Right? So when we share a box of apples and give the same number to Anne as Bill, they each get the same number. So that's equal sharing, right? So when we share a box of apples and say for every 2 that Anne gets, right? So we have Anne and we have Bill here, right? So for every 2 that Anne gets, Bill gets 1. So we're dealing with a ratio. So Anne gets 2. So when Anne gets 2, how much we're giving Bill? We're giving Bill 1. So we have a ratio. So Anne to Bill will be 2 to 1. You think you follow? Good. So let's say there are 24 apples in a box, right? So we have 24 apples in a box. And Anne and Bill, we're sharing them between Anne and Bill. So for every 2 that Anne gets, Bill gets 1. So how many apples do they each get? So this is thinking in terms of share. So here, because it's in ratio form, so you write our total share, or shares, would be 2 plus 1. So we have 3 shares, right? So what we're going to do here is divide our total amount of apples. So how much apples we're sharing? How many apples we're sharing? Can you see there? There are 24 apples in a box. So we're sharing 24 apples. All right? So the 24 apples in the box, we're going to divide it by the total amount of shares, which is 3. All right? So 24 divided by 3 will give us 8 shares. So it means, right? So it means 1 share, right? So 1 share is actually 8, right? So when you divide the 24 by the 3, we're getting 1 share. So, but how much of that share is Anne getting? I'm going to circle it in red. How much is Anne getting? Anne is getting 2 shares and Bill is getting 1 share. So this is what we will do to Anne. So Anne is going to get 8 times 2, which is 16. And Bill is going to get 8 times 1, which is 8. It makes sense, eh? Or we can have it as a fraction as well, because Anne is getting the larger portion, of course, right? So she's getting 2/3 of the shares, and Bill is getting 1/3 of the share. Because remember, we can express a ratio as a fraction as well, right? So the total shares would be 2 plus 1. So Anne is getting 2/3 of the share, which is a larger share, and Bill is getting the 1/3. So it's similarly. So you can have Anne similarly, right? So you can have here Anne. She's getting 2/3 of the share. So when you find 2/3 of 24, that will give us 16. And Bill, he's getting 1/3 of the share. 1/3 of 24 will give us back the 8 there. All right? So let's look at the question that makes us a little solid here. So I have a question here. 2 girls share 15 sweets in the ratio 2 to 3. All right? How many sweets does each girl get? All right? So how many sweets are we sharing? All right, so our total amount of sweets that's 15. right? So the first girl, we can have first girl, because we do not know what are the names of the girls or anything like that, right? So the first girl to the second girl. So what's the ratio of the first girl to the second girl? What's the ratio?
2 to 3.
2 to 3. So the first girl is getting 2 shares, and the second girl is getting 3 shares. So what's the total shares here? Total shares equals 2 plus 3, which will give us
5.
5. Yes, 5. All right. So who's getting the larger share? First girl or second girl?
Second.
The second girl, because she's getting 3, right? So the first girl gets 2/5. She's getting 2/5 of the share. So 2/5 of how many?
15.
Of 15. 5 and 5, 1. 5 and 15, 3. So that would give us 2 times 3.
6.
So she's getting 6 out of 15. All right. So our second girl now. Second girl. She's getting the larger share as you identified earlier, Azaria, right? So it's 3 out of 5 times 15. 5 and 5, 1. 5 into 15, 3. So that will give us 3 times 3. So she gets more of the sweets. So she got 9 sweets. And if you notice, the 9 plus the 6 give you back the total amount of sweets that was shared between the 2 girls. You think you follow?
Yes.
Great. So you can have a question like what we had earlier, in which we were having somebody getting less than or more than. This is a similar one. Somebody's getting less than or more than someone, but this particular one is in the form of a ratio. And then we also have them in words. All right? So that brings us to the concept of, all right. So once you're dealing with unequal sharing, right? So the first thing that we need to do is to lay out the problem, right? So you lay out the problem. So if they give you the names of individuals or so in the problem, you write them down and you try to assess what is happening in the question, right? The second thing to do is to subtract the difference. So as I was telling you earlier, when we were working with the marbles, right? You were subtracting the difference. The person who was getting the extra, right? So you more or less subtract the extra from there. And then you divide the remainder accordingly. So when you take away the extra, right? You divide the remainder accordingly depending on how many persons you have that the items are being shared among. So if the item is being shared among 3 persons, you divide them by 3. If the item is being shared among 2 persons, well, obviously you're going to divide by 2, right? So that's the step to unequal sharing. So the first thing, lay out the problem. Second thing is to subtract the difference, or in what we've learned there is the extra, right? So you take away the extra, and then you divide the remainder accordingly. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Great. So, I have a question here. 48 marbles are to be shared between Alicia and Azaria. So I was thinking about you when I was working on this question, right? Alicia is to receive 10 fewer marbles. So if you're receiving, Alicia, 10 marbles fewer, who's getting the extra?
I am.
You're getting less. So if you're receiving fewer, it means somebody is getting the extra. And who is that person who's getting the extra?
Azaria.
That's Azaria. And how much extra is she getting? The same amount. Right? The extra that you're getting, which is less, is going to her. So it's 10, right? Cool. So how many marbles must you two receive. All right, so we're going through the same process. So we lay out the problem. So go ahead, lay out the problem. So you write your names down. Come on. So you write your names down. Write your names. So you write your name, Azaria. And you write Alicia. All right. And so, how many marbles are shared between you guys?
40.
48, right. So 48 marbles are shared between you guys. So Alicia is to receive 10 marbles fewer. So who's getting the extra?
Sorry.
So Azaria has to put a plus 10 under her name. Plus 10 is going under your name. Right? Great. So what is the difference? So you need to take the extra from the total, right? All right. So what is the total?
48.
48, very good. And the extra?
38.
How much?
38.
38, right. So 48 minus 10 gives you 38. How many persons among the marbles are being shared between?
2.
2 persons. So the difference, the answer you got, you're dividing that by?
2.
Exactly. So go right ahead.
$19.
19. So who's getting 19? So it means so you get a 19, you get a 19. But who's getting the extra?
Sorry.
She's getting the extra. I know how much is the extra.
10.
So what you have to do with that 10? Add it to your
19.
19. Wonderful. So you got a whole 29 marbles. And she has?
10.
No.
19.
19. So you see the fewer. Right? Great. You think you got it?
Yeah.
Wonderful. Let's peep at another one. So we're talking about marks now, not marbles. So Ruby scores 20 more marks than John in a test. If their total score was 146, calculate each person's score. So let's lay out our question. So who are the 2 persons we were talking about?
Ruby.
Ruby
And John.
and John. So write down Ruby and John. What's the total marks?
146.
Right? Put that down there. So we learn out our question. Great. All right. How much? Any extra in there? Everybody see the extra? What's the extra?
26.
Exactly, 26. So who got 26 marks more?
Ruby.
Ruby. So under Ruby, you put a plus 26, all right? Plus 26. Great. So let's do our algorithm now. So we need to take the extra. Just mathematical.
$120.
120. All right, how many persons we are comparing in this test?
2.
2 persons, great. Good. So, so who got 86?
Ruby.
Ruby got 86 and John has?
26. 26.
You sure it's 26?
60.
60. You said it earlier, but you made a mistake, right? So Ruby, she got, how much is that?
86.
She got the whole 86. And John, he got 60. So you can compare who did better in the test there as well. So all of these things we can do here as well. Right? So you think you understand what's happening, right? So the questions like these, they're going to come, so you look out for words like, so for example, right? So if you're sharing, so 86, we can use this as an example, right? 26, so it's 60 plus 26. All right? So in examples like these, you can see that, of course, John got fewer marks, right? Fewer marks than Ruby, and his fewer marks is down. He's down by 26 when you compare the two of them, right? So he got 26 marks less than Ruby, right? And then, of course, Ruby got 26 marks more than him, right? So in terms of the unequal sharing, those are the language, right, that's going to be used. Somebody got less than somebody got more than somebody, right? Or somebody ages more than somebody, things like that. So it can work with age, it can work with scores, it can work with somebody's height. You're comparing height, somebody is taller than somebody by some, whichever measurements they're using. If you're looking at water in a bottle, somebody drank more water than somebody, right? So you can compare in terms of liters there as well, all right? So in our previous sessions, we were looking at ratio and proportions. So I hope that, in our sessions, you're clear on what ratios are, how we compare them, right? So remember, ratios, we more or less use the same quantity. If the quantities are different, there's another terminology that we use, which is called rate. And rate, you have different measurements, right? So when you're looking, like, for example, in terms of distances, miles per hour, and so forth, those are ratio. But because the measurements are different, it's referred to as rate, right? So in ratio, we more or less look at the same quantities, all right? So we use ratios and proportions, and remember, proportions are ratios as well, but they're what we refer to as equivalent ratios. Because remember, in terms of the scaling, right? So in equivalent ratio, if we check it, let's check and see where we had a 2 to 3. All right? 2 to 3. And if I multiply this by 6, I'll get 12. If I multiply back by 6, I'll get 18. So 2 to 3 is similar to 12 to 18. And so 12 to 18 will be the proportion. So it can be scale up, or you can have it scaling down.
Like an equivalent.
Huh?
Like having it be equivalent.
Yes, that's what we mean. So once the ratio is equivalent, we refer to it as a proportion. That's the difference. Think you follow? But it's the same thing in terms of how we work out. Any questions? I think also we mentioned that you can represent a ratio as a fraction when you're doing for calculation purposes. All right? Any questions?
Yeah.
Good. So, as usual, we're going to send out your worksheets so that you can solidify your questions. All right? So remember, when we're looking at unequal sharing, make sure you lay out the problem. All right? What next? Subtract the extra and then divide the remainder accordingly. It's 3 simple steps, right? Lay out the problem, subtract the extra, and divide accordingly. All right? So thank you for being with us today, and see you next time in our next program.